The narrative around Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev is that this fight is going to be razor thin. This fight's a 50-50. It's going to be super close. And I don't think that at all. I think this is going to be a very one-sided fight. And people have this wrong. Let's start with the grappling because this is the big conversation around this fight. We all know that this fight's going to take place on the ground at some point and probably very quickly in the first round. Khamzat Chimaev basically shoots on everybody from the moment the bell rings. I think he's going to do the same against DDP. I think we can all agree on that. And we all know Khamzat Chimaev has the clear advantage there. He just submitted Robert Whittaker in the very first round, which brings me to Dricus du Plessis. I'm worried about him on the ground. A lot of people I think are overlooking this. They're thinking that DDP is just going to be able to survive on the ground with Khamzat Chimaev because he's durable and, you know, he's bigger and stronger than everybody. But in terms of the technical skill that Dricus has on the ground, I'm not so confident in him, you know, being able to survive against Khamzat in the very first round. You look at a similar opponent they both had, Robert Whittaker. DDP got taken down by Robert Whittaker and fairly easy. Literally a double leg straight to his back. Well, what happens when Khamzat Chimaev does that to Dricus? We're talking about two completely different level grapplers between Robert Whittaker and Khamzat Chimaev. We clearly saw how that went between them. We've never seen Dricus go up against a specialist of this level, especially in the grappling. And if anybody's to survive on the ground with Khamzat, it's Dricus du Plessis. But in terms of the technical part of the ground game, defending submissions, getting up, I don't know if he's different from anybody else. I would trust Usman, honestly, more to defend himself on the ground technically than DDP. And I think a lot of people are overlooking that, and they're mostly relying on Dricus's physicality. But the thing about this fight is that Khamzat Chimaev, I think, has even more of a physical advantage than Dricus. And for the first time in Dricus's career, he's going to deal with that because I think every fight Dricus has been in, he's had that physical advantage. Look at Sean Strickland. He's clearly had the physical advantage in that fight. Even against Adesanya. Yeah, Adesanya is quick and he has some power, but he's not as strong in the grappling. He doesn't take damage as well as Dricus. I think Dricus is probably a harder puncher than Adesanya. Before that, Robert Whittaker, much smaller. You could tell in their fight. I think Dricus has had a size advantage and a physicality advantage his entire career in the UFC. And I think Khamzat Chimaev's one of the most physical fighters at middleweight. He's going to have the size advantage in frame. I think he's got as much power as Dricus or even more. We've seen Khamzat Chimaev knock out people with one punch, and that fight was at 185. We've seen Khamzat Chimaev ragdoll guys like Robert Whittaker. We haven't seen Strickland do that to Whittaker. We haven't seen Adesanya do that to Whittaker. I think physically wise, Dricus is not even going to have the advantage there. I truly don't think so. I think the only physical advantage Dricus has is the cardio. And that's what leads us to another huge narrative of this fight is if Dricus survives round one, he wins the fight. That's pretty much what most of the people that are talking about this fight are saying. If Dricus can survive against that first round with Khamzat Chimaev, he's winning the fight because Khamzat has bad cardio. He's going to gas out. And Dricus wins basically on making people gas out. And it's true. Dricus exhausted Adesanya, took him to the ground, and he strangled him. He outpressured Strickland and he threw more output, and that's how he won the first fight, even the second fight. But if we really look at Dricus and his cardio, he doesn't have this world-class cardio like a guy like Merab. I think what makes him special and why people think he has such great cardio is the fact that he just pushes harder than everybody else. We saw in the Adesanya fight, he was getting exhausted. He was taking breaks, crouching down on the ground. So it's not that I think he's not getting tired, it's just the fact that he pushes so hard. So I think the fight, if it takes place in the first two rounds and it's mostly grappling exchanges, it's not like Dricus is going to have much more of a physical cardio advantage over Khamzat, especially if Khamzat's on top of him the entire time, making him carry his weight. I think Khamzat will be the fresher guy going into the third round, going into the fourth round. If this fight takes place in grappling, I think the cardio advantage and every advantage goes to Khamzat. I think Dricus will really be able to show his cardio if he can end up defending takedowns later in the fight and keeping it on the feet and doing damage, because if he doesn't deliver damage to Khamzat, I don't think you're going to see a Khamzat that's wiltering or giving up from exhaustion. We saw with the Gilbert Burns fight, he wasted all of his energy pretty much in the first round and he was just trading with Gilbert Burns, and I think that's a main reason he was getting tired was the fact that he was also taking damage. But I don't see this fight in the first round or the second round taking place on the feet at all. I think Khamzat Chimaev is going to shoot takedowns and he's going to get them. And it's going to be up to Dricus to survive. And I trust Khamzat Chimaev's grappling cardio and skill in those grappling exchanges with Dricus. So I don't believe in the narrative if Dricus survives the first round, he's going to win the fight, because I think Khamzat Chimaev has finishing potential in the second round and possibly even third round. And if he secures 3 rounds based off control, he won the fight unless he gets finished, right? Even if the last 2 rounds take place on the feet and Dricus does have the advantage on the feet, I don't know if he's going to be able to do enough to finish Khamzat Chimaev, especially if they do pure grappling for 1 or 2 rounds straight. I think they're going to be pretty exhausted. But that brings us to the striking. What happens if these guys stay on the feet? What happens if Dricus survives the first or second round? What happens if Dricus defends the takedowns of Khamzat? And I think Dricus will have the advantage on the feet, but not by much. And I think the striking of Khamzat Chimaev is being super underrated. I don't think he's as good as Dricus. I don't think he's going to have the advantage on the feet, but I think it's going to be close, especially that, Khamzat Chimaev has knockout power. That's another thing. Khamzat Chimaev in the first round has a chance to finish Dricus on the feet as well. We've seen Khamzat Chimaev knock out people with 1 punch. He's going to be a threat from everywhere in that first round. But going into the second or third or fourth, when the finishing threat's kind of further away, I could see this going tit for tat, even more than Strickland and DDP. The only way I really see Dricus winning this fight, to be honest, is if Khamzat Chimaev completely gasses himself out like you saw in that Gilbert Burns fight where he's chasing a finish, a ground and pound finish, or Dricus ends up just stinging Khamzat Chimaev on the feet. Because I think the reality of this is that Khamzat Chimaev could probably win by decision. And the main reason I have such a hard time in thinking Dricus can win this fight is that I think the only way Dricus can win is on the feet. And I just don't think that he'll be able to defend takedowns very easily. I don't think he'll be able to defend takedowns even later into the fight. And if he can't constantly defend takedowns and get back up from those takedowns, I think Khamzat Chimaev could just purely win this fight on control. Especially the way Dricus fights. He's had so much success, but he's never faced somebody this technical. And I think it's going to be a big problem for him because he looks good with this unorthodox style until he fights somebody that can actually expose it. And I think Khamzat Chimaev's the guy that can expose it. Dricus is off balance a lot. He's almost falling over. And when he has somebody diving on his legs and going for a takedown, I don't think he's going to have that easy of a time defending them or getting back up. And the only way really Khamzat Chimaev would lose this without it going to the striking is if he just completely gassed out and just got finished by exhaustion. But I just don't think that's a possibility. Khamzat, doesn't have the greatest cardio because of the way he fights in the first and second round, but I don't think his cardio's that bad or even that much worse than Dricus's. I just think it's the way that he fights. So yeah, in the 4th and 5th round, he's not going to have as much of a cardio advantage as Dricus, but I don't think it's going to be that bad. And on the feet, I'm not that confident in Dricus being able to get a finish on Khamzat. And if the striking is completely one-sided and Dricus is just running home with it, I still feel like Khamzat Chimaev will be able to shoot takedowns and score rounds by control. But the way I see this fight going is Khamzat Chimaev, and I think he's going to get a first round finish. And I think it's going to be by TKO. I don't think it's going to be a submission because I actually think that DDP will be able to defend against a rear naked choke pretty well. I don't think he's going to have the issue with the neck crank like Robert Whittaker did. I think Khamzat Chimaev gets Dricus's back early in the first round, and I think he wins this by TKO through ground and pound. I don't think he's going to put Dricus out, but I think he's going to be able to finish Dricus off the fact that he's not going to be able to defend himself. He's not going to be able to defend himself from the ground and pound. But there's the chance that Dricus survives round 1. Round 2, I think it's going to be a similar story. I think Khamzat Chimaev is going to be able to secure a takedown, and majority of that round will probably be on the ground. I'm not confident in Dricus being able to get up on the ground from Khamzat Chimaev. But in the 3rd round, I think Khamzat will get a little more tired. But like I said, a lot of people I think are counting out Khamzat Chimaev's striking. There's a chance that Khamzat Chimaev outstrikes Dricus. I think the bottom line of this is that I think Khamzat Chimaev is more skilled than Dricus by far in the grappling. And I think the physicality is the main reason why I'm so confident, because with a guy like Adesanya who had clear skill in the striking, what made the difference was the physicality of Dricus. There's not going to be that factor in the fight with Khamzat Chimaev. And that's why I'm so confident in Khamzat Chimaev winning this. And I think he's going to win in the first round. But let me know what you guys think about this. Are there any other ways you think Dricus can win this fight or Khamzat can win this fight? Do you think I'm right? Do you think I'm wrong? Let me know in the comments below. If you guys like this video, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe.